pages from your packet that apply to us, just to make it easier for us to reference as we're talking through it. But first of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here today. It will be a joint presentation between the undersheriff and myself. I think it's important for the supervisors to understand the duties that.
Dean, I don't want to interrupt you, but
yeah,
I do want to let the rest of the board know, even though we're in a public hearing and so on, I want this to be a free-flowing exchange. I don't necessarily. Please go ahead and address individual board members and these questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, interject at any point if you guys have a question for me. But yeah, last year or 2 years ago, actually, we did this when we gave a full presentation to the board. Actually, Supervisor Wassick, unfortunately, wasn't able to make until the end of our presentation, I think, and then Supervisor Albaugh obviously is new. So if you guys don't mind, I'd really like to just give a quick summary of what.
I'm happy to have a refresher anytime.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So if you look at the packet we gave you, you guys obviously feel free to read through it. There's a lot of information. I don't intend to read it verbatim. But, first of all, that section that's blocked out there, we understand the financial situation the county's in, and our responsibilities are growing all the time. And we're really trying to deal with new state, federal, other mandates, or even just improving the level of service we provide to the people without incurring additional costs, or the county incurring additional costs. So we've got some volunteer programs which include explorers. Those are young people, between the ages of, I think,
high school freshmen.
Yeah, high school freshmen, up to 18 years old that participate, right along with deputies, work in the jail along with COs. And actually, as they advance, we're able to use them to actually augment our staffing, like running the control room sometimes in the jail when we need them. Another one is we have a clerical volunteer who is there at least a couple days a week. And sometimes she comes and works 40 hours a week to cover vacations. It's been a huge benefit. She helps with all the Public Records Act requests, collecting records, and so on. And we're trying to expand our volunteers, but I'll get into that further in a minute. Then obviously our search and rescue team. They do a great job for us. They recently found that person lost in Lassen National Park, which we'll be billing Title III funds for. But obviously they provide a great service at no cost to us. On medical, the inmate medical is always a huge issue for us. As we told you before, the undersheriff and I have worked with CSAC and CSSA to change some legislation in the penal code to allow us to pay a lower rate for medical costs that we incur. We've also got someone to negotiate claims, or we negotiate claims. A lot of our people, if they go for emergency medical care, they go to Washoe Medical Center in Reno. And when they go there, these laws that we had changed within our state don't apply. So we have a person that's on the phone negotiating those claims down every time. And they're pretty good at working with us, Washoe is. Probably.
Renown is fantastic.
Renown, I keep calling it Washoe. But Renown, we probably pay what percentage you think it'll for?
40 cents on the dollar a lot of times with Renown.
So we do a lot of work. We're real proactive. We don't just pay the bills when they come in. We do what we can to try to conserve our funds. Obviously, we have we work with the DA and the courts when we can. We try to look when we have a seriously ill offender. We try to determine if there's some other option for us other than keeping them in custody and paying for those bills. But obviously, we have to weigh the risk they could potentially pose to the public, and also we don't want people to get off a lower sentence just because they happen to be ill if we can avoid it.
And that's every single time, gentlemen. Every time. The first 15 days of this fiscal year, we had 19 inmates leave that jail and go to the hospital. Completely beyond our control. But in every one of those cases, we start a risk assessment to determine, is there a legal means to get them out of custody? And then if so, are they of the risk classification where we even want to make that pitch? Sometimes that's with the courts where we seek a modified sentence. Sometimes that's where we seek the ability to write a promise to appear. Sometimes we're looking for an OR release. We're trying to find measures to turn the county's meter off as fast as we can, provided it's legal to do it, provided it doesn't pose a risk to public safety. But that's 100% of the time.
The next thing we've done in the last few years is the different Homeland Security grants. We've been before the whole board multiple times asking for approval for purchases. But all public safety radios had to be converted to a new narrowband system. And instead of coming to the county and say, hey, this is how much it's going to cost, we went out and sought funds from grants. And through those grants, we were able to fund all the radios for the sheriff's office, the mobile radios for the police department, radios for search and rescue, for public health, for OES, and local fire agencies. We bought a number of handhelds for local fire agencies, and we bought them a repeater. So there's some other efforts we've made to try to not bring costs upon the county. The next thing we're working on, we're pretty excited about, we're working on with the citizens down in Doyle, and we recently signed an agreement with Janesville School. What we're trying to do is open more substations out in the communities to give the public an opportunity to interact with someone from our office, even if it's a volunteer. In South County, the people, they've offered up a privately owned building for us to open a substation. That presents challenges just because it's private property. We're trying to work through that, see if it's something that we can do. But the one that's moving ahead fast is Janesville School. There's actually that old daycare center that's right in front of Janesville School on Main Street, Janesville. They're giving us that building, or allowing us to use it at no cost at all. They're paying for the utilities and everything else. We will probably do some work on improving the site itself, paint and so on. But we hope in the near future to open that facility as a substation, staff it a few hours, at least a few hours a week with volunteers from the Janesville area. And then the other thing it's going to do for us, it's going to allow us to, right now, all the deputies assigned to the Honey Lake Valley have to come all the way back to our main sheriff's office to write reports. Our intent is to have some people assigned to that area and have them go there to write reports. It keeps them closer to the people, keeps them from having to roll code 3 through the city, and I just think it's a big benefit for us.
It increases our presence at the campus as well.
Yes.
That was part of our, we put a lot of energy into school safety throughout the spring, and that was a side benefit that came out of those discussions. Janesville School Board talked to us, and they had a ton of interest in trying to work with us to get those, to get that substation there. They're thrilled at the prospect of having marked SO units right there by the campus, at the campus, as much as they can.
And we hope to do that in other places too. After that, basically what we're asking for, it really is a status quo budget. We're not asking for any more people, any more, whiz-bang programs of any type. And then we'll go to, now I'll give a quick summary of the different programs. The 111 fund is contract patrols. We have a contract with the Forest Service to patrol campgrounds. Primarily those are, Eagle Lake, Crater Lake, Silver Lake. We did those. Also, boating safety. We provide boating safety on all the navigable waters in Lassen County. Obviously, the ones we're primarily at are Eagle Lake. We'll operate Eagle Lake as late as we can into the year until we can't get on it anymore because of the ice. And then also Blue Lake. We actually have a guy that lives up at Blue Lake for us every summer and provides boating safety up there. We periodically get out to Crater and those other lakes. The other one,
the $110,000 increase over the last couple of years is due to additional grants that you've obtained.
most of it. The off-highway vehicle program is a new one, but that wouldn't account for
Well,
$100,000.
the reason why I asked that question, if I can, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
is we had a $100,000 carryover at that was the estimated fund balance. So that would be grants that came in, I guess, that weren't expended, and we're only generating estimated grant revenue for this fiscal year of $170,000, and yet we're going to be spending $270,000 if we were to spend everything. I imagine that there will probably be less spent than what would be projected, but it would that would carry over to the following year's budget. So what happens a year from now? Let's say we spend the $270,000, you guys are full board and have plenty of people busy, and you don't get you only had $170,000 in revenue this year. So are we going to then all of a sudden work to a screeching halt and lay a bunch of people off and cut back services and campgrounds and boating safety?
No. Now, what we do there, Mr. Chapman, is we cover all of the ongoing costs first and try and cover everything, personnel and fuel and everything that's ongoing with existing year potential revenues. And then we'll take the extra, call it, money, so to speak, and we'll plug that into areas like whether it's non-capitalized equipment or special department, So the authority is there to spend it if something comes up. If a motor breaks, if a jet goes down in a boat, if something catastrophic happens, we have to get it, then we're not having to come back mid-year and try and seek an additional appropriation. So where you see that increase over the years, there was a period of time where that money was on the sidelines, but we had some significant mechanical failures and had to come back for budget adjustments to account for that. And it slows the process. And there are times of the year that, frankly, we just can't be down a boat for very long. We need those on the water. So that's why we made the change. But we'll only spend those extras above and beyond the ongoing if something catastrophic happens.
And we did, like last year, for a couple of years, the deputy who was assigned to Eagle Lake was out on work comp. He's since medically retired. But we have a hard time, we have a limited number of part-time staff, and we had a hard time actually getting all that billing for all the hours. So this past year, we actually went into some of that residual and made sure we met our full obligation on the revenue side, correct?
Correct.
So we actually transferred some of that carryover balance. We showed as additional revenue last year to meet our revenue, what we projected we'd receive in revenues. Any questions about contract patrols? The other one I didn't cover is the off-highway vehicle safety program. We started that a couple of years ago. So far we required a little side-by-side UTV. We do patrols in the OHV area out in Doyle Hurlong. It's been well received by the people out there. And this year we bought a couple snowmobiles so we can use them for search and rescue and patrols in our snowmobile parks. Fund 125, bailiff. We already came here this year to adopt. We adopt the preliminary budget?
Yes.
We did with us, that shows, with us taking over court security from screening, which includes screening and 2 COs to work the court holding facility. Now that was a tough decision to make, joining in that partnership with the courts in some ways, but no matter what, I'm responsible for operating that court holding facility in there. It's a local detention facility. And that's the benefit we see from it. Obviously, we take on some additional responsibility from joining with the courts, but the benefit is we have 2 paid correctional officers that are paid out of that court funding that can help us operate that court holding facility without becoming a new cost to us.
Well, I think it's actually a good move, actually, Mr. Chairman.
There's the numbers that show that.
Yeah, because you basically assume $235,878 in additional expenditures, but your revenue line item is going to jump up to the $426,000. Is what was estimated. What you're projecting is $417,000. Is what the CAO revised it to. So, in essence, you're backfilling and using this by doing it as a whole package. You're finding a funding source of $182,000 you were already spending, providing bailiff services in the courts and so forth.
That's a separate revenue, correct? For the bailiffs, that's something we get under
Direct from state.
When they did public safety realignment, there were 2 pots of money. The courts got the money that they were using for their security, and we've got ours directly from the state, correct? So I think it's $162,000 we do get from the state for bailiffs. And then, yes, that additional revenue we're getting from the state's paying for the 2 correctional officers and 3 sheriff security officers who work screening in the patrol. So the only danger in that partnership is long-term, depending on what revenue increases we get from the state. That's my only concern there, as costs.
Well, right now, you basically have been able to fund that whole activity between those 2 streams, and
You're
that's
right.
what's important.
You're right, and for many years, we were short on the courts for even covering the 2 bailiffs. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that was the point. Maybe not the full $182,000, but a chunk of that we were having to subsidize. But based on this here, you're breaking even, and what happens 10 years from now will be a different story. But
Yeah, you're correct. At one point, I think we were subsidizing as much as like
we'll let
$40,000 a year.
Right.
And I had a question for Dean. It doesn't necessarily apply to you, but it applies more to everybody. On the group insurance on the cafeteria, how come the cafeterias went up so much? It seems to me.
I think what you're asking is when you're looking at each budget unit, there's a group insurance, a cafeteria charge, and it's less when you're looking at actual expenditures versus the budget. When we pay our flex monies, I don't necessarily know. I know what each employee is going to get from the county, but I don't necessarily know what they're going to use that for. So when you're looking at a budget unit, generally what will happen, and I get this question a lot, it's a great question. departments will call and they'll say, we're way over in health insurance, but our cafeteria is low. So as long as those two are offsetting, because I don't know what people are going to use their money for from year to year, I only know what we're going to give them. So does that answer that question?
We also agreed with our employment group as part of negotiations here to add $50 to cafeteria plan and partially offset the cost of health insurance increase.
Per head per month.
And part of the big jump you have here too is that we're jumping by adding those 4 additional.
Right, but it wasn't just in those.
No, it's in every one.
In every-
But those 2 line items
Generally, it's the health insurance line, but it
Right.
could,
could be.
It could also be dental and,
correct.
But you're right, you just, cafeteria, I was just curious on why that was.
I just don't know. Only know what employees will be allocated. I don't know where they'll put it.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So on the 125, there is no impact on public safety or general fund. The things I am required to do is attend all Superior Court sessions that occur in the county. Whether or not we got any money or not, I have to be there. And then also that court holding facility, I have to man that anytime there's an offender being held in custody there. The next one.
Maybe you can rent out some of the available bed space there to the governor for his corrections firms.
Yeah. All right, the next one is one of our most substantial budgets. It's the patrol budget. And a lot of people, I've heard in the past, people say, well, Sheriff, all you really have to do is attend courts and run the jail. You have to bailiff in jail. You have no other statutory responsibilities. But clearly that's not the case. There's some government code sections cited here. The sheriff shall preserve peace, and to accomplish this object may sponsor, supervise, or participate in any project of crime prevention, rehabilitation of persons previously convicted of crimes, of oppression and delinquency. But you can look at the different sections. So clearly I have some obligation to the people to provide some general law enforcement services.
Let alone legal obligation, we have a moral obligation.
Yes,
All of us.
I agree with you. I have a legal obligation and a moral obligation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I can ask, obviously this is one that has a big chunk, and it's a $564,000 increase over the 11-12 years. So and that was the year that we decided to add the 3 new positions, of which 2 positions went into this budget and 1 position went into dispatch. But in terms of taking what the salary levels back then versus what the salaries are right now, this is before you even get into all the other allocations and stuff. It's about a $440,000 increase, even though, obviously it counts for 2 additional bodies being incorporated in there. But
Part of that this year is that shift from narcotics task force.
Yeah, and clearly, Mr. Chapman, it's at the board's pleasure. What we were going to try and do was go through the overview, and then we've got every one of our budgets, so we can all be on the same line and verse. And then, but clearly, if you'd rather take it now, we can.
Let's go there.
if you're programmed to talk about that at some point down the road,
Absolutely.
or if I can hold my questions to then, that's great.
Thank you.
Fine with me.
So any questions about our obligations to provide patrol or general law enforcement services? The next one is coroners, and that's a huge part of our responsibility. A lot of people don't recognize that as such. Most deputies are deputy coroners, but they are not all deputy coroners. And that's an area where I put a ton of emphasis since I became sheriff. It was always just sort of a sideline responsibility. I don't think it was given a great deal of priority, and we've tried to do that. We've been increasing the level of training for our staff, and the benefit we get from that, the fiscal benefit we see from that, is sometimes there are ways to identify the cause of death and perform my legal obligations as coroner without having to do a full autopsy. There's lots of different things that we can do through our investigations, more or less intrusive examinations of deceased persons and so on. So we put a great deal of effort into training, and I think that's really paid off in helping to control the coroner's costs, because the rate for autopsies and examinations and so on continues to go up, but and I know our coroner's line has gone up some, but it would be a lot worse, I believe, if we hadn't spent that time and effort into training our personnel.
And we did 138 death investigations last year. calendar year. We've already done 115 this calendar year. And again, that's one of those ones almost like jail medical. It's completely unpredictable. We could have none between now and December, or we could have 50.
Yeah,
There've been a lot.
There've been a lot, and the ones that automatically cost us a lot of money are any kind of accidental death where we have to do an autopsy. You know, I mean, it's about $3,500, $4,000 each one of those to have the post done, transportation of the body, toxicology, and so on. So we try to avoid that, but obviously I've got my statutory obligation to determine accurately what the cause of death was, what the circumstances of the death were, and so on. So we're making sure we meet those legal responsibilities, but trying to control costs there. Any questions about coroners? And just so you know, Aaron, or Mr. Albaugh, we contract with Washoe County Medical Examiner's Office. Obviously, most sheriffs in big counties have a medical examiner on staff. They have a coroner's facility, but we don't. And most counties in our region contract with either Shasta County or Washoe County. And Washoe County provides a great service for us. They do a wonderful job. Every once in a while, in a pinch, we'll use Shasta, but Washoe provides a great service for us.
So the one out of state doesn't bother your,
No, it hasn't. We haven't had any legal issues related to that. Obviously, we do have the body transferred out of state, for the examination, but Walton's mortuary, contract with them, they do the transportation of the body to and from Washoe for us, and it's never presented any significant legal issues for us. Yes.
So you said there was about 150 you do with them?
Last year we did 138 total. This year, calendar year since January, we've done 115 death investigations.
So that's about a 3 or 3,500, like 400,000 or so, isn't it?
No. Well, we don't have to do a coroner's investigation. We investigate just far enough to determine the cause of death. Sometimes we're able to work with the treating physician. There's some legal timelines and so on. But sometimes, if they have a significant medical history and that they have a physician treating them on a regular basis, we can get the cause of death from the physician if they're comfortable with it and we're comfortable with it.
I misunderstood you. I thought you said it cost you like 3,500.
If we do an autopsy.
If we do an autopsy.
Oh, so
Yes.
Okay. So you don't have to do like 130.
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, truly, when I first started, if it was a coroner's case, we pretty much did an autopsy. That's just the way we worked way back when. But now there's lots of intermediate things we can do to determine, fulfill our legal obligations without doing an autopsy on every.
130 cases, about how many autopsies? A third?
I have to look. What do you think?
It's a third.
Probably a third or so.
But I mean, it's still a lot cheaper to place some out.
Oh yeah, if we tried to hire a medical examiner and establish the facilities, it would be.
so one other question on that, Dave. How
Yes.
does that work, say if there is a questionable death and you're comfortable with not doing an autopsy, but the family wants one, are you obligated, and does that give you the legal stuff? Or?
No, but obviously we want to, we'll consider what the family has to say. Sometimes, if they have good information that would lead us to where, believe that we should, we will. But sometimes it's, we do whatever we think is necessary in the investigation. And obviously we consider what the family has to say. But if the family wants one, I don't have a legal obligation to do so.
So if they wanted one, they could spend their own money.
Yes, we have done that a few times. We've offered it to where they can pay the cost. It's pretty rare, but I know we've done it a couple times. The other one we've done is if they want what's happened more often, I actually don't remember ever doing a post that they paid for, but a toxicology we've done a few times where there's no legal requirement. We're comfortable with the cause of death based on our investigations and our findings, but the family has requested a toxicology screening to see if there's any drugs or something else in the system. So, and what might have been in the system. So we've done that a few times.
And sometimes, Aaron, it goes the other way, where the family really doesn't want an autopsy. They don't want any intrusive, post-mortem examination of their loved one at all. So that can get difficult as well. Trying to respect the family's wishes, but again, meet the legal obligations to determine the cause of death.
All right, dispatch. We operate the primary public safety answering point for the county. You guys have heard that, especially the supervisor's been around a while, multiple times probably. But obviously, when someone dials 911 from a landline phone, it goes to our dispatch center. That's a significant responsibility that we have. Now, as we've described multiple times to you, most mobile 911 calls are coming to our dispatch center. We do that in partnership with the Susanville Police Department, and they pay 40% of our operating costs for that dispatch center. And so they actively dispatch law enforcement, sheriff's office, police department, but obviously they make decisions as to who they should transfer other calls to, medical, fire, and so on. So they're always coordinating with the Susanville Interagency Fire Center and medical dispatch. And like Supervisor Chapman said, we did add a dispatcher there a couple of years ago, and I really appreciate you guys doing that, funding that position. It's made a big difference in there. You know, we try when we can. We'd like to have 2 dispatchers because that's a busy dispatch center. We have 1 vacancy right now we're working on filling, and you can tell the difference immediately when you're 1 person short. And the hard part with dispatch is you never know when it's going to be busy. You know, it might be a Monday in the morning or it might be a Sunday night, but it's either, sometimes it's slow, but when it's busy, and you need people there. Any questions about dispatch?
You talked about radio vaults, is that where you've got new repeaters up or something?
Yes, we've really worked with this narrow banding requirement. What it did is basically reduced the efficiency of our radio system by about half. So we've had some real difficulties this past year and a half with our radio systems. We have repeaters in various places, but we're looking at adding repeaters to try to improve our coverage for our deputies. One of the most biggest issues we had, though, was we've got all this equipment that we got through these grants. We got it installed on the mountaintops, but it's real complicated. It's not like, you know, a CB radio. Everything is electronic, computerized, and our local radio technician was having difficulties getting everything operational. So just recently, we entered in an agreement with our technician out of Reading, who's been a huge benefit. He's come up here 2 days so far. And in the 2 days that he's been here, it's really helped us turn the corner. Because there have been times where you couldn't talk hardly at all on our radio systems, and those are key for officer safety. And I felt bad about it. I felt bad that our guys can't effectively communicate on their radios, but there was no easy button to push. There was no easy answer. But now we've got this technician, and that's one of the increases when we do get the dispatch budget. You'll see is this guy's been invaluable so far in getting everything, helping us turn the corner, and get our system up and running again. But we are adding repeaters. But for a long time, we had a repeater on Widow Mountain and Beaver, and that wasn't working because our base station down here wasn't working. So our guys in Beaver had very limited radio communications from the whole Big Valley area. The only repeater they had that worked was actually West Prospect out by Lassen Park, and it would only work in some areas. So I felt worse for the guys out in those outlying areas. They almost had no radio communications. But now, right now, the base system is working, and it seems to be working pretty good, but we're going to continue to make improvements. We're adding a repeater right up here above Milford on Blacks Mountain. The repeater's there. We're just waiting for FCC license to work in Oakland. But that's going to be we're not the only people experiencing those issues. Other jurisdictions have, just because of the lack of efficiency in our radios now. And we're actually looking at adding a second one right here around the area of Susanville. You think it'd be easy to communicate with Susanville Police Department, but it's difficult because of the little bowl we're in right here.
Radio frequencies are a finite number, there's only so many available, and they're very valuable because of cell phones, so they're forcing us into use less of it, so there's more cell FCC.
Yeah, so we had to use, when they narrow banded, we're using half the bandwidth, so that you just lose a lot of efficiency.
Well, if Marty will give up his phone, I'll give mine.
So yeah, that's presented some challenges this year. The next one is the jail. Obviously, my responsibilities in there are lined out in many different penal code and government code sections. The jail is a Type 2 facility, defined in the California Code of Regulations. We hold both pretrial and sentenced inmates. The capacity of the county jail is 156. You guys, most of you came and toured the jail, and I appreciate that a few months ago, because it's a lot different when you see it in person. People, when we do that open house every year, we give tours, and the people from the public are just amazed. We had no idea it was such a big facility and what this consisted of. But our jail population has been varying between 120 and 140 right now. As of last